Welcome back to the Limitless Women podcast. In today's episode, I want to give you a heads up and kind of like a warning in case you have little people with you. We're going to talk about some subjects that are a little tough and some subjects that might be better for adult audiences only. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce you to my dear friend, Deborah Kagan. Deborah and I met years ago when I was in California, and at the time, she was the woman to meet if you wanted to get your mojo back. Fast forward, she's written several books. Her latest is called Undressed. And she's a person who leads with such passion and clarity. She brings this amazing balance of confidence and really courage. And I think that you're going to very much enjoy what she has to say today and find some ways to maybe be a little more courageous yourself. I hope you enjoy the episode. Okay, I am so excited today to be able to share with you my good friend, Deborah Kagan. And Deborah, thank you. Thank you so much for making time. Thanks for being your magnificent youth. Thank you for bringing all of that hair and we're just rolling. And it's just fun to be with you again. I think the last time we were on stage together was in 2018. And we've been friends for a long time. I don't know exactly how long, but many years. And it's just such a pleasure. I'm so grateful. I was going through my contacts and saying, I think we need to talk. It's time to catch up. So I said, let's do it live and help everybody else from your brilliance and share you. So thanks for being here today.
It's my pleasure. I jump at the chance to spend time with you. So this is great.
Yeah. And we need to do this more in person.
Yes. Yes, please.
We'll just do more of that this year. All right, my love. So I think, you've got an incredible history. You've got beautiful work. You've got an incredible message as a leader to help women. And the reason that I wanted to interview you today is that I feel like part of what has me love you so much is the way that you lead with courage and confidence and how you say the things that other people are not saying. I think that we need more of that. We need more of that in the world. So can you tell us a little bit about your origin story, kind of like where you started and what had you do the work that you're doing today?
Yeah, well, thank you for that. And I always say that I grew up in a functionally dysfunctional household. Good people, and yet my folks divorced when I was young. They both remarried. Those were incredibly unhappy times for me. My mom's second husband was emotionally and physically abusive. So I grew up in a home of domestic violence and abuse for 8 years. And, what's fascinating to me is when you really look at kids, and now I'm an aunt and I've got, some nieces and nephews, and I'm so grateful. I consciously chose not to have children. And I knew that long time ago, frankly. Yeah, I think in high school I knew, and I just thought that was strange. In any case, I digress. But I look at, my nieces and nephews, and as they're growing up and they're still, young, we are so resourceful as young people. Okay. Like, if a kid wants something, it's going to figure out how to get the thing, right? Like some way, side door, back door, this, that. Sure. I bring that up because I was living in this abusive household, which obviously was not fun for anybody. And I just thought, well, my mom's not doing anything about it. I got to get out. Like, this is not working for me. And I heard a girlfriend, this is in 7th grade, and she said, I'm going to boarding school. And I said, what is that? So basically, I got myself to boarding school and got out of the house. And that was great. My mother finally realized at the end of my freshman year in boarding school, like, oh, wow, this is really bad. And she then finally left. I think that had to do a lot because I wasn't there to buffer. And unfortunately, I love my boarding school. I stayed there for 4 years, and it's a really wonderful place. I was already drinking and doing drugs, and that had started before boarding school, and mostly to numb myself, right? Just not a happy young person. So I had befriended the local drug dealer in town who was older, right? I was 14 and about to be 15 at the end of my freshman year. Anyway, he ended up breaking into my dorm at the very end of my freshman year, and he raped me. So my early years had a lot of unfortunate experiences, things I don't wish upon anybody. However, in hindsight, I see why, personally, I went through those in order to do and serve in the way that I'm here to serve in this lifetime. So we'll jump to college, which is when I believe that is really when my spiritual life began. It was early on in college. A friend gave me a book, and that woke me up. I had already had, I would say, when I look back on it, actual spiritual experiences. I didn't know that's what they were. And this was in boarding school. But it was spirit trying to be like, hey, I'm here. I'm with you. And I didn't have that language. I didn't have that understanding. I still was like, let me numb myself. Because I didn't, by the way, tell anyone. This is relevant. I didn't tell anyone about the rape. I was embarrassed. I thought it was my fault because I knew him, because I would go into town and we would party. And so I thought, well, I brought this upon myself, right? And so there was a lot of shame. And it wasn't until I did go to film school. I went back to New York. I grew up in New York City, and I went to film school, and I ended up making a film about it, which was 6-ish years after the experience. And it was a very artsy, kind of poetic version of the experience. However, friends were like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Of course, I didn't know that happened. And that broke my silence. And I haven't stopped talking about it ever since, which I bring up and is important because the shame and the holding of it is, and that silence is what festers inside and eats away at your confidence and at your natural life force, right? So that was brilliant to finally free myself of holding that in for all of those years. And then my spiritual life really, started to take off in college. And then I had an opportunity to get a job in Los Angeles, which is where I've lived now for 31 years. And now I see, I wasn't meant to come to LA to actually work in the film business, which I did for a number of years. I was meant to come to LA to get out of the metaphysical closet, to be able to serve in the way that I'm actually here to serve, which is the blend of, as I like to say, the very practical sort of New York situation, and blending the metaphysical and the woo. Like I bring it, not the woo woo, but I bring the woo to you, right? So we blend that together so that you can really access all you're here to be. And that's a bit of the background of what brought me to here.
Yeah, well, and I just would say, thank you for living in the deep end of the ocean with me. Never wait, just dive right in there and give it to us. I think that this is really the place where your role, I would say it's my understanding of your divine purpose, Deborah, is to really, again, that boldness to take off the Band-Aid, if you will, right away, and let us see what's going on underneath is so courageous and vulnerable. And I'm just so grateful to you. I'm so grateful to you. And as a person who also was in a domestic violence relationship myself, and then, the stories of sexual molestation since the time I was 2 until the time I was 9, and then more incest. I mean, there's just all these layers. And I will say that I don't want to make this about my story. I feel like this is about your story. What's important is how much this is not unusual. Yeah, that's really not, we're here in the context of how do we build a business that creates profits for purpose and what lies underneath that, because we only really, I know our tribe, I know our community of women who are spiritually connected, who have a calling. Many of us have experienced different layers and different levels of trauma in our childhood and in our early adulthood, and often even longer, that we didn't talk about. You're not talking about the rape, and I just remember, as you're sharing that, I just remember the feelings of not being able to tell anybody.
Yeah.
And years and years. And then when I did tell someone, having them say, well, at least it wasn't this, or at least you're like having it poo-pooed. And
right.
Like, oh, well, yeah, you're fine. And it was like, oh, yeah, I guess we don't have any feelings about that. Let's keep moving on. So I wasn't numbing myself with drugs or alcohol as a young person. I learned to numb myself with being a workaholic. I learned to numb myself because it wasn't safe to have feelings, right?
Right.
Cool and be tough and be Teflon. My ex-husband called me Teflon. I don't think that was a compliment. Blessings. But I think that that's, really the place again, like what do we do to survive and how do we move out of that and heal and have it not be the definition? How do we create a new normal for ourselves is a big part of this journey as leaders. And I think I'm curious about in your own experience, where did you see yourself? When did you start to say, okay, I've had this time. I've had a certain level of healing and blessings that have come through. Now it's my turn to give back. Where did that start happening for you?
Well, it started happening here in Los Angeles. And the specific work with women and the way that I've been serving now for over 20 years really happened at when I had an experience at Eve Ensler. She's now named V. She's the one who wrote the Vagina Monologues.
That's right.
And so I saw that originally in 1998. And I thought, oh my goodness, you're saying all the things that I have thought inside and that nobody else has ever given voice to. And wow. So I started following. I found out about her organization to end violence against women and girls, obviously, as we now know, close to my heart. And I decided when I went to this big event of hers, which has happened to be in New Orleans, that I had a spiritual download, if you will. I walked into the Superdome and it was kind of like beam me up, Scotty. I walked in and I stopped and I literally felt this energy just go boom, like my whole body just vibrated and tingled. And I was like, okay, something's happening here. And I heard, I'm clairaudient, and I heard, it's time to do the work with women. And I stopped. I glanced up and I said, I hear you. I don't know what you want me to do. And, I'm listening. I'm continuing to listen. And as I came back from that event, it was a whole beautiful, amazing weekend celebrating the organization. And I was sitting at a coffee shop with a girlfriend 2 days later. And it was just like this. It hit me. And it said, oh, I'm starting a women's group out of my living room. And it was specifically to talk about our bodies, our intimacy, sexuality, and how we are in terms of our own personal power, if you will, our divine feminine power, and to have a space for that. So like many things in my life, I didn't exactly know where this was going or why. Women came and then it grew out of my living room. And here we are 20 years later.
Here we are. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you look back at the last 20 years, I feel like I'm excited to see where the next 20 years takes you. But when you look back at the last 20 years and look at the women that you've met, what's been one of the most compelling things that's happened for you in the act of service to others?
This always brings tears to my eyes because this is why I do what I do. To witness a woman stepping into what I call a turned on life, to witness that in their body. I lead a mentorship program, and part of that is we do weekend retreats. We do that twice a year. So it's called the embodiment experience, those weekends, because we get to really dive deep with embodiment work in person, like in the flesh together. And to witness these women who will have come to me and with all the layers like we've all had, with the pains and the traumas and the shames and all of these false ideas of who they are, and then to watch them peel that off through this embodiment work, through breath work, through learning about the different roles that they play in life and like really taking that on. Then by the end of the weekend where we finish and there's this beautiful circle and every woman really exploring and sharing themselves for the greater good of the group, they're grown women, of course, but I think like these are my babies, this is what I am nurturing and what I give to, and to watch that process, that's the most extraordinary thing every single time.
Fantastic. And what's coming up for you in the future? Tell me a little bit about what you've got now in the way of offers based on all these decades of incredible service to women and in the evolution of you as what's your current hot?
It's very interesting. The beginning and long time of the work that I've done, I referred to it. Many people called me the Mojo Lady.
Yes.
And right. Yeah, that was the whole brand. And that was beautiful. And that was, that brought the wave to where we are now. And I know my gift is utilizing my own life and my own experience and having it move its way through me so that I then can offer that. It's what, for my astrology people out there, it's the Chiron effect. It's the wounded healer effect. It's conjunct my sun. So I am a walking, wounded healer who heals the wounds and then supports you to do the same. And I had an extraordinary experience almost 2 years ago now. It was in France in the cave of Mary Magdalene. And there was an activation that happened for me, very unexpected. I didn't even know I was going to be going there. And that has changed the trajectory of the work. And so what's happened is the framework of what's being shared is coming from what I'm calling the 6 sacred gates. And this is still all about embodying your own confidence, being comfortable in your own skin, and living that turned on life. And it is coming through a space of your divinity, of really feeling that life force and that aliveness within you connected to your divine feminine. My last book, which I encourage everybody to connect with, is called Undressed. And that really blends the spirit and the sexuality together specifically. It's an invitation to claim your erotic nature. So it brings the divine as well as our human flesh, to the conversation. But where I'm going is supporting women with activating these 6 sacred gates within themselves and continuing to run the mentorship. I have international retreats that I offer now. We went to Costa Rica last year.
Oh, fun.
We've got one that I'm planning to bring women to Scotland. And so those are on the table as well.
So exciting.
Yeah.
So cool stuff.
It's really beautiful.
It really is. So if you were to go back in time to this young girl, I know you've done so much healing and so much work. Mm-hmm. But what words of good advice would you have had? And I think, not even so much, I think it's almost like 2 versions of you are curious for me. One is the girl who had the courage to say, I need to get out of here. I'm going to boarding school. I don't even know what boarding school is when I'm on my way, right? Yeah. What would you say to her today?
I would tell her that she, number one, is loved and that she is considered. She matters. That was things that I did not know. I did not know those things. And that, that is really one of my part of the work, but certainly the deep wish in my heart is that each of us knows the kind of love that is always available for us and that we're always connected to. And when we allow ourselves to peel off, the wounds and to peel off the trauma, it's right there. Yeah. It's always right there.
Precious. There's so much goodness in the healing that what comes out is newer and younger and fresher and stronger. I think we go back to the beginning of your talking about your family, your young people in your family and the resilience, right? And it's as we age, right? I'll be 60 this year. And we think about, what's the next 10 years, next 20 years, right? How do we embrace this process and have it be just juicier and more enriching and us and everybody around us, right? I think there's something in the role modeling of being called at this season of life to talk about sex, to talk about love, to talk about passion and embodiment and really the greatness of our bodies. I didn't have role models that I can remember as a young person who I would look at and say, that's what I'm going to look like when I'm in my 50s and 60s. I didn't have that. So it's an interesting thing that you get to create what you're passionate about.
Yes. And I always say you can be sexy and in your juiciness until your last breath.
Yes.
And also it's about getting free. Yeah. And what's interesting is, the wave of women in their 60s and 70s who I'm working with now, because they are like, what? Hey, I want to get free. I'm still here, right? It's all right. And that thrills me because No matter what age or stage you're at, it is possible. And you just make the choice. It's about that choice of getting free.
I think so. And I think you've got some really great methodology that you've crafted and created, the culmination of your own wisdom and then your divine guidance and the journeys you've been on. If you were to go back and talk to the young girl who went to college and started waking up spiritually, what would you want to say to her now?
You don't have to try so hard.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. She was still trying really hard, to be accepted, to be liked, to be loved, to be considered, acknowledged. And I would just say, you don't need to try so hard.
It's great the way
you are really fantastic. Just keep doing what you're doing. Keep shining how you are, grow, continue to be curious. Like curiosity is one of the greatest, if not the best quality, I think, in any human. And, having a curious nature. I feel so blessed. Actually, we just celebrated my uncle who turned 80. He's like a second father to me. Yeah. And he's one of the most delightfully, deliciously curious humans I know. And I learned so much about that way of being from him and his mother, who's my grandmother, and she definitely was my everything. And so I would have said to, my sweet college days self, like, you don't have to try so hard.
Yeah, I think there's this place too, in this unfolding. There's two things there. First is the curiosity piece. I'm reading Bill Clinton's book, Citizen, right now. And that's one of the things he talks about right at the beginning. It's just like the richness of his past, 23 years since he came out of public office has been remaining curious. And about other people that I've known in close personal friends who, as they age, and some of them have passed and some of them are still here, there's something about that that nature of being, right? And it's a bit of a superpower. And I think if we can stay more curious, we can actually enjoy every day of our lives in a richer way. So it's good. Mm-hmm. So we can get the book Undressed where? On Amazon?
And wherever books are sold, but yes, on Amazon for sure. So it's there for you. And that's, the most recent book. I'm so super proud of it. It was a labor of love and I would say, it got rejected, by the way. So this is another thing for people to remember, like whatever you might be doing. This book had been kicked around publishing houses, agents, for many years and lots of rejections. And then, there was the yes. And so she's been out in the world and she's living her life now, the Undressed book.
No, good. Yeah. And so where do we find you online if we want to follow up and know more about what you have coming up, adventures, retreats, and how to connect with you?
There's a free gift that I put together for your folks, and it is the How Turned On Are You quiz. And this is how turned on are you in life, okay? And it will walk you through the 6 sacred gates. And so it'll ask you very simple questions. You can do the quiz in, I think, under 10 minutes. And it will help you to discover which of those gates are actually blocked and which ones are working well. And it's going to give you lots of free resources to support you in whatever gates happen to be blocked. And then you'll get to be a part of the community over here. I mostly play on Instagram at Deborah Kagan. I'm on Facebook as well, Deborah Kagan Official, and YouTube at Deborah Kagan.
Yeah, cool. We'll make sure to include those links. And I would just say, to reiterate that, what we know today is the brand of Limitless Women started as Powered with Passion. Because people would say to me, how do you do this? And how do you do that? I was just following what I was passionate about. And it's an easy thing when you get into the routine. Let me say for myself, when I get in the routine of doing things, to forget that the power that lies in that, right? When we actually are turned on, when we're fired up about something, it's like that all the hows start coming together. So I love that you give us a resource to turn that back on. If we've got a block, let's figure that out. And, that's wonderful. And I look forward to seeing you again, my friend. It's really such a pleasure to be with you. I appreciate your time. I appreciate your wisdom. And I'm looking forward to playing with you again really soon.
Well, me too. Thank you for having me on.
So good, honey. Thank you.
Are you a limitless woman? This is your personal invitation to learn how you can join our online community, grow through our business school, and play with us at our live events. Go to limitlesswomen.com for all the details. That's limitlesswomen.com. Thanks for joining us.